Have you heard about the newest trend that's happening on Instagram this summer? Well, in this video, I'm going to be building my version of the edible charcuterie board. So let's jump right into it. So before I jump into the ingredients, if we're just meeting for the first time, my name is Jordan and this is Amazing Gray's Board. And on this channel, I build charcuterie boards. That's it. So if that's something you also love to do and watch, then please consider subscribing. So before I get into the ingredients, one last thing I need to mention is that this board, one, of course, it's edible, but also we're going to be cooking it on the grill. So you want to make sure that you can do it in the oven, but this is a summer trend. So we want to kind of fit that in and make sure you know that you will need a little grill and make sure to have that ready when you're going to build this board. So next disclaimer is that I've seen a lot of different versions on Instagram, which I think are great. But when I saw this, the first thing that triggered my mind was something I actually have a board on Pinterest is for focaccia art. So one day, scrolling on Pinterest, I saw a beautiful focaccia bread with floral arrangements on it using food, using herbs. So I just made a board and just loved viewing and finding those breads, but I don't make bread. So when I saw this trend, I knew that I had to kind of combine those two. So that is some of the ingredients that I'm using are going to be building this art on our edible charcuterie board. So let's jump into it. What you're gonna need first and foremost is pre-made pizza dough. So this is going to be your edible board, and you'll use a baking sheet and a couple of ramekins. You're gonna need some ramekins that are going to be embedded inside the bread. So we're gonna lay it on top. We're gonna use foil to wrap around the ramekin to make sure it's safe and it doesn't burn. But you wanna figure out, okay, what cheese do I wanna use? Do I wanna use round, square, whatever it might be, so that when we put it on our grill, it's gonna kind of start to cook around that shape. So those are the two that I'm working with. And for our floral arrangements, I'm gonna be trying to use some cherries, a yellow bell pepper, some asparagus, and capers and Kalamata Olives. And then I might also cook into the bread some dried apricots. So those are what are gonna be, I'm gonna try and put those down on the grill with those ingredients, but everything on top, we're going to add honey. I've got some regular salami and prosciutto. We have some fruit, so I'll add some grapes and some different berries that I've picked up here. We have some Marcona almonds that I got at Trader Joe's. Those are always the best. And then the cheeses that we'll be using, this is a goat cheese. It's like a goat Gouda. I have a Boursin. This one is the shallot and chives. And then this is a supreme Brie cheese. So we'll be putting that on our board just to make it look like an actual cheese board. And I forgot to mention that in the cooking process, I am gonna try and add some different herbs. I love this package. It's the poultry blend. You get sage, thyme, and rosemary, and those are some of the ones that I use on my board constantly. So I love to have all three in an option in one container. So if you see that, pick that up. And that's it. So those are all the ingredients. It might be a little bit more timely to build this one just because we're creating art on top of the board. So let's just jump right into getting that pizza on my grill.
Okay, so we are going to start off with our ramekins. So I ended up pulling out a piece of foil and making sure I folded the flat side down, if that makes sense, and then kind of tucking in all the excess underneath, because you're gonna lay the pizza dough on top and we don't want it to be kind of bubbly and having any kind of excess texture on top. So I ended up creating a couple of little foil bits on my own because I realized I didn't have enough space. So here I am unfolding the pizza dough, the pre-made dough, which worked out perfectly for the pan size I had. So I'm making sure I fit everything in place and starting to grab the vegetables that I prepped, which is asparagus, and I'm using little capers for some tiny cute little leaves. I have a sprig of thyme and some cut in half cherry tomatoes and another sprig of asparagus and some cute green olives that just make it look like some leaves and greenery on this edible board. So I have fresh sage, and then I'm also getting another asparagus stem and adding some Kalamata olives that I chopped up really fine. And then I cut up some they're not julienne, they're definitely not, they're pretty chunky, but some yellow peppers that we're gonna use to build a sunflower. So that foil right where the caper stem is, that's gonna be a salami rose. That's what I have in mind. And then we're just gonna kind of fit some other cheeses around and see what we can come up with. But I'm just kind of doing the last little prep to make space because I realize this board is actually pretty small. So on the edges, I'm just adding a couple of pieces of apricots that I cut in half and generous amounts of olive oil because it stuck. So you'll see that later, but for right now, I should have probably added more. But here I am placing the dough on top for us to get ready to go in the grill, and I'm pushing down around the ramekins on top of my herbs, making sure I push and get it to stick as much as possible. So we're gonna put it on the grill, we're gonna cook it for, I think I did it for maybe 8 to 10 minutes, just until you can touch and make sure it's not still doughy. And here it is. So voila, I flip it over and guess what? Everything came off on my sheet pan, but that's okay. I was going to edit that out and pretend like that did not happen, but guess what? That's reality. So here we are. We're gonna take everything off of that sheet pan. We're gonna use a tiny spatula and get it off and put it on the board, and it still looked great and it tasted awesome. So I'm just picking everything back off, putting it on, and prepping everything else to start to fill in our little gaps and our holes. And so we're gonna start off with our salami rose that I actually made off camera. So I'm gonna do a short on how I did that so you guys can watch that in a different video. But here I'm just placing in the Boursin cheese that I chose, and the hole was too big. So I wanted to make sure I had kind of pressed it down with a little bit of parchment paper to fill it out, and that's like works so easy because it's such a soft cheese. And then I'm filling in the little rectangular spot that I placed with the sliced brie. So that worked out really perfect. I was actually going to use that for honey, but I realized, hey, this is a puzzle piece basically. That cheese was perfect for that spot. So I've got some Marcona almonds going around the Boursin. I realized that on the board, I don't have the normal space as I would on a real wooden board. So I figured I need to use all the nooks and crannies I have. So I just added some Mike's Hot Honey that I'll link below because that wasn't in my original list that I had, but I wanted to make sure I incorporated something fun like that. So the goat cheese I sliced in triangles is going around the edge because I didn't want to hide the beautiful flowers that I made. And so I figured I would just use the whole board, not only the edible board. So I ended up just deciding to put ramekins on the wooden board and fill them with fruit. And I'm so glad I did because that whole focaccia art bread that I've just been obsessed with, I love how I was able to incorporate that with just, of course, a cheese board that I'm always obsessed with. And it just made my heart so happy to see flowers on a board and you can eat it. It was so great. So I'm just also, I think at this point, I'm like thinking in my mind how I'm going to get the prosciutto on this board without hiding, again, some of the art that we created. So I'm adding just some fresh herbs right now, and then I'm going to be getting my prosciutto. And the prosciutto, when you pull it out, it's like a pretty good size rectangular slice of meat. So I fold it in half and then I just kind of ribbon it. And I have the white fat side facing up so that it just has this beautiful contrast of color when you place it on your board. And I just love that when you can kind of see the two different colors. So this is my last touch on the board. It just turned out so fun, and it was great to be able to literally eat the board that you're putting your cheese on. So I love this trend. Check out Food Network. They have it on their Instagram page, and everybody just took off with creating their own. So I hope you enjoyed mine, and I will see you in the next video.